Hello again and welcome back to Blink Podcast, the fastest growing business podcast across New Zealand and Australia. I tell you what, we're pumped for this episode. It is our first return guest and it's focused about the slump market and getting you guys out of the funk. The one and only John Shackleton coming up after this. Hello guys, hello Darren, of course, my host from the other side of the ditch, and now he's good mate. Right next to him there in the middle, John Shackleton. Welcome back to the show, John. Our very first return guest, and let me tell you, you do hold the record for the most downloads of our podcast for the last time we had you on. So we thought we'd be shameless and merciless, and in the hunt for more listeners, we'll get you back on and bleed more of your knowledge out and share it with our good audience. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Darren, thank you too.
Good to have you, mate. And thanks, Cricky. It's bloody good to be here, and it's great to have John with us because I think his content and his insights to this market we got it right now is going to be really, really valuable. So I'm actually really looking forward to this and pumped for this one. Let's go.
And just a bit of context, John. You and Darren have known each other for a long time. You've been a successful
2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks, a good solid 2 or 3 weeks. You've had a very successful career in high performance and motivating teams and leaders and promoting and pushing people to achieve their best across the world. Then I think if we recap the last episode, which was about episode 3 or 4 in season 1, if you want to go back and find it, had a little bit of a speed hump in your own life, and now you help people with their own mental health and promoting themselves and getting themselves fine-tuned so that we can move forward. And the reason why Darren and I have got you back on this episode is because we believe, and we're getting a lot of feedback in the comments and the messages that are getting sent to us about what we've termed as the funk. And we believe that the market is, because it's more challenging, Darren and I focus on areas where sales teams have to be up and about, real estate, the motor industry, finance, recruitment, all those sort of industries that have teams of people that go out and try and convince others to do a deal. They seem to be in a funk. And we've got you on to help our great listeners get out of this funk.
And I think one of the things that I just want to add to that is I was in a business this morning and the person says to me, Darren, look, I'm really getting the sense with all the offices that I've been visiting and been working with that I actually feel like in the first 2 months of this year that a lot of people have just turned up to work but didn't really bring their mental game and didn't really bring a mental focus on this year. So they sort of feel like that they've already done 2 months of this year and actually really haven't either achieved a lot or feel like that it's really been stop-start. And I think, it's really important for us today on this episode is just to give people some really clear messaging about, what are we needing to be doing to get this machine moving and feeling like that we've got a purpose again. Because John, you've said to me a few times now, you see it out there where people sort of feel like they've lost a bit of purpose or lost a bit of drive to where they want to go. And I think it's something that we've got to be getting an understanding of again.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to look at circumstances and allow your activity to be dictated by your opinion of the circumstances. And let's face it, it's just our opinion of what's going on. Somebody else is going to look at the current state of the market and think, Jesus, I want some more of this. This is exactly what I'm looking for. But we're looking at it thinking, oh my God, it's doom and gloom. That's just a view of what is. That's all it is. And we have to accept that.
Jonathan, you've said this to me before. We go into real estate offices often and we'll have people say, this is the type of market that I excel in. This tougher market is where I'm the best, right? And then on the other side of the coin, we've got a whole lot of people that say, oh my goodness, it's the worst market I've ever been in, right? And it's the same market. And I think that message there is a lot of it is actually our interpretation of that.
And everybody is working with that market.
Yep.
And if somebody else can achieve, how come you can't? It's just because you allow the picture that's in front of you to influence you, whereas it actually doesn't need to. You can still be you without letting the funk infiltrate your brain. I think that's the case anyway.
John, do you think that there was a saying that's been around for a long time: ignorance is bliss? And
Well,
we used to see this in television world where you'd be in an open newsroom of 120 reporters and they're all fighting for the spot to be the next host. Oh, I used to tap out of that, but they used to fight for the next host, and you get this one person who'd come in, in all opinions for people who'd been there for a long time. Oh my God, they're terrible. They're making silly mistakes. They're not checking their facts, blah, blah, blah. But they thought they were the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the next thing, within 6 months, they're the ones sitting on the desk reading the news because they didn't know or weren't willing to sort of self-assess themselves as being not as good as they thought they were. They were just ignorant to it. Is that...
Well, yeah, but I think you can actually force ignorance. It's that book which you guys may have read. What's it? The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I think you can actually create that. In other words,
are we allowed to swear on this podcast, Jonathan?
John is. You're not.
Okay, cool. Nice. Sorry, I was just checking.
The title of a book. The thing is, you can create that so-called ignorance. It's not really ignorance. It's just people deciding not to let what's happening out there influence them. Yes, you will do that through ignorance, but you can also create that. You can manufacture that attitude. It's just down to an individual. I genuinely believe that you can have any opinion that you want to about the market. And as Darren says, if somebody sat there thinking, this is the market I do really well in, I'm ready, let's go bring it on, then they're going to do well. I don't care what the market is. It's irrelevant.
I think it is. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for mindset and also the mindset around change. A lot of people, and I'd love to explore this with you, John, is why do some people fear change and other people revel in it? So you get these people who've almost got these tiger personalities where they're waiting for the disruption. They're waiting for the opportunities that come with change. And then you've got other people who have refined a methodical system and a method and a process, and they're almost on Groundhog Day or the Truman Show sort of style day where they get up at the same time, they eat the same food, they get into the office, they make themselves a cup of tea, they speak to the same work colleague at the fridge, then they go to their desk.
And they're boring old farts, yeah.
Well, not necessarily. I don't know if it's because they're boring old farts, but it's where they're comfortable. And that's the routine that they like.
Let's go back to the first part of your statement. You say there are people who fear change and there are ones that don't. I think we all fear change, but it's just our view of how important it is in your life. You know, if you're lined up for an Olympic final, you'd be, quite frankly, smart if you wore brown underpants on that day, because fear is massive. But that doesn't mean you run away from it. Just because you've got fear in your life, you don't have to run away. You could run towards, which will actually create massive results. So I think we've all got to recognize everybody's scared. Yeah, the world looks pretty daunting. I understand that. We're all scared. But some people just run towards that fear rather than run away from it. And that is just inside our head. We make the choice. It's not the cat that walks across, the black cat that walks across your path, and it's not, well, it's raining today, so I won't, or it's not, well, it's who wants to be phoned at 4:30. It's none of those things. It's just literally you saying, I'm going to run towards this problem. I've got a big problem and I'm going to run towards it.
Okay. So let me put it to you this way. I've got two daughters, 13 and 15. They both play hockey. They both play at a high standard. The older one, who's probably been the, more reserved, studious, organised, tidy room one, she plays in the mindset of the fear of making mistakes. Her thing is, she always says to me, Dad, I'm going out there, 0 turnovers today. I'm just going to be calm with the ball. I'm going to deliver it. I'm not going to try and do anything fancy. I'm just going to do the basics and do them really well. The younger one, messy room, clothes all over the house, school bag spread in the most awkward hallway position possible, always late to the car in the morning. Yeah, everything's a bit of a scramble. But she gets out there and has no fear of making any mistakes at all. She just goes for it. She's described as the wild child. And her thinking when I've asked her about it is, well, if I turn it over, I'll just go back and get it.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Did you have a change in postman in between the two girls?
No. No.
No, you're dead right. We have no control over their personality. We don't know what's going through. I tell you what, the second one.
Where does that come from?
Well, the second
how
one
do we
will
change
suffer less. Well, just conditioning from their early life. I don't know. There's no child is brought up the same. They have different inputs into their brain, don't they, at different times, and you cannot tell how they're going to store that information, how they're going to interpret it and say, oh, well, Dad shouted at me. What does that mean to me? One of them will go, I'll show him. And the other one will go, oh, well, I'll back down a bit and run away. It's just, we have no idea how they're going to turn out. The point is, the second one, your younger daughter, is going to suffer less trauma in her life, without any doubt, because she's at the point where she's saying, well, look, I just love what I'm doing. I'm just going to have fun. And now that's not going to cause any mental anguish. The top one might well reach just as high a standard, but she's going to have more mental anguish in her life. Because I've been in both places. Personally, I've been in both places where I really cared, and I cared so much it screwed me up. And now I'm in a situation where I've learned to be able to back off from it and say, listen, the life is what it is. The situation in front of me is what it is, and I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and mistakes might be for the good. But initially, when I was like your elder daughter, it drove me to distraction. I was unbelievably competitive, and when I made mistakes, I beat myself up all the time. And that, but you can change. You don't have to be like that for the rest of your life.
And I think one of the big learnings that I have around this is it depends if you're worried about the outcome or not. Okay, so the second one is not so worried about the outcome, right? It's in those moments I'm going to do my absolute best I possibly can, and whatever the outcome is, it'll be what it is. And if a ball gets away from me, don't worry, I'm going to chase back hard. I'm going to do my best to get it back. Whereas the other one has got the fear of, actually, I don't want to lose the ball in the first place. So I'm more worried about the outcome rather than the process. And I think one of the key things that I'm seeing at the moment is a lot of people are really worried about the outcome. The market's dropping. I've lost business. I'm not doing as much. I'm struggling with this. I've got mortgages to pay. But they're forgetting about the actual, what do they have to do in the process to create the success, which is different than what they've had. And I think this is it's a great topic to be able to talk about, because right now we can see a lot of people have got a lot of views of the world, but are actually getting bogged down with those views rather than getting back to what is the process that I should be focusing on.
I think the most important word you used there, Darren, was views. It's their interpretation of what is actually happening in the market. They don't know, and nobody knows. All we've got is what we can see in front of us. And it's our interpretation of what we see. We don't see everything. We only see this bit here, this little bit here. And it's our interpretation of that. We've got to stop making interpretations.
Yeah.
So I think what we can draw... Sorry, John.
No worries.
I think what we can draw from this is that, Darren, if we apply this to business over the last couple of years, there's been a strain. Definitely been a strain on people. Maybe their financial reserves have been battered a little bit. They're not making the progress they were making, so they don't feel as though they're growing as fast or on the same trajectory that they were prior to the pandemic, plus the cyclones, plus the floods, plus the bushfires, plus everything else in the world. And so all of a sudden, they're entering into a market that has changed. There's inflationary pressure. There's things that are out of their control that are happening. Interest rates are going up. When interest rates go up, more people become unemployed. They've probably got mortgages on homes that are now overvalued, not to talk down the market because there's still some really high-performing areas in the market. And so what's happening is, I think if we can just translate this in a loose sort of way, is that because they've been through those things and they don't have those safety nets of finances that they had before, the results of each meeting or each interaction, whatever you want to call it, transaction, carries more weight.
Yep.
I need this one.
Yeah.
Right? I need this one. So before
Okay.
they even enter the meeting, they're like, man, I better nail this. I better get this. They then maybe try too hard, don't become themselves. They sweat it. They stuff it up because they're too busy catastrophizing about what happens if it goes wrong. And then that gets projected into the world. And then it all falls over and the pressure mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts. So I think if there's one thing we can deliver our listeners today is how. How do we help them shift from the funk into that tiger mindset of, as John said, I've got that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Freckle. It's the most travelled book in my house. I think I've taken on about 8 holidays and never opened it. I've got the intent to read it, but I never have. But I think that's exactly what we need to try and do here today. What are the steps?
Can I backtrack 1 minute? Can I backtrack? Because you started off the whole conversation with people are struggling probably financially, and you're dead right. So let me ask you a question, guys. So let's say we've got this really difficult client we've got to see, and we've really got to crack this one, and we're desperate and we're frantic and we're frightened. So what would this problem look like if the only thing that was different is your life and you had an extra $1 million cash in the bank? How would the problem now appear to you if you had an extra $1 million sitting in the bank behind you? You would not give a fraggle. Am I right? You wouldn't care whether you got the deal or not. And that's how you get deals when you go into them without giving a fraggle. I just don't care. And that's how your younger daughter plays hockey. She goes in there not caring whether she wins or loses. She just wants to have fun. So for the next time we get a recession, wouldn't it be a good idea if you're a salesperson that's paid on commission, wouldn't it be a good idea to chuck a whole chunk of that commission that you're going to earn now in the bank, so the next time this happens, you've now got $1 million sat in the bank, so you can sit there going, I don't care whether I get this deal or not. Yeah, I think that thing is probably bigger than anything.
Yeah, but they didn't do that, did they, Darren? The market was flying. They went out and bought toys, surf skis,
Maseratis were a good addition to the household.
Cuddle puddles.
I was saying to a guy this morning, I sold my boat 12 months ago. I couldn't have sold it now because everybody's panicking, but back then everybody wanted to buy. So I made a bloody fortune. When everybody else wants to buy, you sell. When everybody else wants to sell, you buy. Yeah. But if you had the extra millions in the bank, wouldn't life look nicer?
Yep. And I'm just going to give you a slightly different perspective on that. If you focus on your system and your process, if you focus on what you do and how you do it, regardless of whether the market's up or down, you'll be successful.
Yes,
right?
I agree with that.
And that's the key part for this. Rather than doing stuff that, I have to do this differently because of this, if your system and process is nice and robust and you've practiced it, you've done the skill development, you're good at what you do, in these markets, it shines like a light in the darkness, right? Because everyone goes, that person knows what to do, how to get me out of the situation, and that's why I go there. But when we get into the situation about having to do better, or I'm going to really push hard on this presentation, I'm going to do, so all of that stuff is different to what you normally do. So stop all of that and get back to what is the best system for you and just build that. And then once you build it, just do it. Over and over and over and over again. And
take no notice of the result. You just do it. You take no notice of the result.
Don't worry about the result. Just follow the process. And you go through, and Jonathan and I, we go into these businesses all the time, and we say to people, what's your branding process? What's your sales process? How do you talk to a customer process? What's your marketing and branding for a properties process? And most people look at us like, shit, I know I need to do that, but I've never done it, and I just do it ad hoc every time.
I haven't got time to do it now because the market's so shit.
That's it.
It's really right, Darren. It's really simple. Get 5 things that need to be done today and do them immediately. And then after you've done that, do the next 5 that need to be done today, do them immediately. And stop trying to judge it based on what the market is. Get on the phone, MF.
Now, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, John. You say, okay, just get out there, get the calls going. But let's go a little bit deeper here and say, I suffer this. We had a conversation about it previously. How do we get around your brain from stopping you from doing those things? Because the brain's very powerful. It can convince you to do a lot of different things. And, one of those things is, I raised it before and you sort of hinted at it. The listeners probably wouldn't have got it because they didn't know where we were coming from. But I had 4 calls to finish off yesterday to hit my target. And if I'll just mute Darren so he can't hear me as my mentor. I don't want him hearing this. It reached 4:15 in the afternoon, and for some reason in my mind, 4:15, just for yesterday, was too late in the day for me to ring those last 3 people.
Now, this is written down in the Bible.
Do it.
This rule at 4:15, it's in the Bible that at 4:15 people don't want to talk business anymore. It's a rule. I don't know if you know that. I'm being stupid, of course. It's all in the mind. The mind creates all of this rubbish, all of it. What we have to learn long term is to be able to disassociate from the mind and realize that our mind is not us and it's making this rubbish up. And we have to basically go to our mind and tell it, shut the up and just get on with what we need to do. But everybody associates so much with their mind. They take what their mind says as being completely correct and crystal clear and obvious and correct. And it's not. It's just a completely buggered up computer that you've got sat up here, which has got a glitch. And we need to get away from the idea of taking what our mind says as being important or right. And it isn't. It's just our mind.
I also think that is it possible that the funk's compounded by the increased level of work from homers? People are spending more time by themselves, and the only person or the only interactions they get are conversations with their own brain. And if the message coming back if the message coming back to you is not all rose and chocolates, then it can compound and compound and compound.
It won't be, because the mind is actually conditioned to be negative. Not that. That's its job. Its job is to protect us from danger, right? So the thinking mind, its job is to protect us from danger. Now we're in a world now we don't have those dangers. The saber-toothed tiger is not behind that piece of grass over there. And so we don't have that danger. So it looks for other things to warn us about. It's its job to warn us. So what we have to learn to do is to say, thank you very much. I'm not actually interested in your theories. Bugger off. I'm just going to get on the phone. Because it's the mind that screws us up every time. We've got to learn to disassociate from it. Now, you've heard me talk before about mindfulness and about how that allows you to put the thoughts out here somewhere and observe them. And if you can do that, you start to realize, God, my mind is so full of junk. Comes up with the same old rubbish every day. 4:15, nobody wants to talk to me. Oh, you just came up with that one yesterday. Why don't you?
Well, that's John putting his 2 fingers up for those who are listening on the podcast.
Here's John, this is for your benefit and for Jonathan's understanding.
Go on.
Most high performers and most business people who are frantically busy during the day will generally return their calls between 4:30 and 6 o'clock at night, because that's when they're free to be able to do it, right? Yeah. So they are in a position to be able to make those calls at that time. So when you ring them at 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock, they're probably in a meeting, right? So the time they are available is the time you've decided that you want to ring them then.
Damn it.
I tell you what, Jonathan, can I ask you a question? If you got a phone call at 4:15, would you be happy to receive it? You personally?
Well, me personally, I'm from the generation where we don't like receiving any phone calls at all, because we want to rename the phone into something else.
In that case, if I work for the lottery, mate, sod it, you've lost your bloody 5. Not going to coming in. No, it's from you trying to sell them something. Maybe they think it's from their grandmother saying, I've just left you 5 million in the will. They have no idea who the call is from. Yeah. And if they don't want to take a call, guess what? They won't take it.
On to the next one.
I'm standing from a position here where I don't have to make calls, so it's very different for me. So
it is pretty. We've gone 20 episodes now, I think, Darren, and it all just comes back to. Hopefully, you can hear me. We did have an audio glitch in the middle there. Apologies for that. We really do just come back to taking that action, making those calls. So let's get on to the solutions. Darren, you ready to get on to the solutions?
Yeah, I reckon we should do that because these I reckon are really good.
I reckon, so I'll start it off. I think the first thing you have to do, and the one thing that I find really useful, if I wake up and I'm like, oh, God, I've got a day of things to do that I don't really enjoy, because the thing I enjoy doing the most is the actual interaction and the work. Getting the clients is the bit that I'm probably a little bit reluctant to put myself out there for. But small wins. What are the small wins? I know that it's popular online that David Goggins and other guys like that say, well, get up and make your bed. And once you make your bed, get dressed like you're going to work, even if you work at home. So small wins. What do you think about small wins?
Brilliant. Absolutely. It's a key thing, right? Because the more small wins that you have, the more confidence it develops, the more confidence you are, the more you override any issues or dramas, and you just put them as issues or dramas, and you move on to the next thing because those small wins give you the confidence. So I'm a big fan of that. I do sometimes find that it can let people sort of reduce their aspirations for success, because what they do is they look for small wins. So all of a sudden making your bed is the small win, where actually it should be just part of our process of what we do each day. So I'm sort of, and this is the piece for me, is what are the bigger challenges that we can put in front of ourselves that help us strive for that. But I do completely get the fact that once you've had a few small wins, it really improves that confidence and helps you do that. So, giving yourself some easy calls to start with, giving yourself some conversations that are good fun, makes life so much easier.
Yeah, I think that fun thing's really important, and that's the distinction between your two daughters. I would think, I've never met them, but your two daughters, one of them has a lot of fun, and the other one, the fun is dependent on whether she wins or not. Would that be true?
No, they both like to win.
I get they both like to win, but one of them can have fun even if she loses.
They've got a famous saying that there was. I don't think I'm speaking out of school here. It's so many years ago, but I was coaching the under-10s, and I had both of them in the team, even though the younger one was many years younger. And we had a bit of a Karen come along who had introduced her daughter to the sport about 2 hours earlier, never held a hockey stick. And the mum said, I want Jenny to play in this team. And we're like, well, Jenny has to go through a bit of an assessment first to make sure that it's appropriate for her to be in this team. No, she just wants to go out there and have fun. You seem to be coaching this team a little bit too hard, so you have to adjust for her. And at which point my youngest daughter, who was about 8 at the time, piped around and said, yeah, we play hockey to have fun, no problems. And we just find that when you win, you have more fun. And that shut Karen down. So I
love that. That's cool.
But that's it. I think the wins lead to fun, right? When you don't do the things, and Darren's putting an asterisk on wins, which I think's great. Always review your wins and always evolve your wins and make them bigger and bigger and bigger as you go. Start small.
What if you don't win? What if you don't win? What's going to happen then?
You just keep.
If you don't win, and if you don't win, if having fun is dependent on winning, then that's it. You're stuffed. You're going to go to a place where I went to, where nothing is great fun anymore. It doesn't matter how much you win. I got to a stage where it didn't matter how many gigs I got. I lost that gig over there. Therefore, I'm losing. And that's not a great place to be. I think the number one requirement is to have fun. Enjoy yourself. And if you're not enjoying yourself, get out and do something else. We only get one chance on this planet. And if life is crap for you right now, then change. Don't do it. Yeah. Or make the decision that whatever it is I do, whether I win or lose, I'm just going to have fun at doing this. And if somebody on the other end of the phone is rude to me, I'm going to have even more fun. I'm going to wind them up until they keep it, because my job on this life is to enjoy myself. It ain't to win. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The better I get, the more I win because I practice more. But
Right on.
number one requirement, number one is have fun.
Yes,
Tell me what number 2 is, John. Tell me what number 2 is, because I'm liking your number 2 here, because I think this one is important for people to
Number
get their
two
heads
solution.
around.
Number two solution for me is this concept of understanding that we have to be with whatever is in front of us. It sounds really tree hugging and fluffy, but the truth of the matter is, whatever the state of the market, whatever our opinion of what's going on, if we want to stay in this market and we want to stay making money, we have to accept what is and stop trying to change it. And stop trying to change who we are, stop trying to change what we do. We know we've got to get on the phone and make the phone calls. We can't change the market. We can change what we say, but the smart thing would be to have a pretty good script anyway.
Yep.
And if you practice that script enough, it's going to be applicable. You change a few words because the market's a bit down, but you just do that. You might have to do it a bit more often when the market's like this, but that's all you do. And if it's not fun, put some fun into the script. Have a bit of a laugh with some people. Because you'd make their day if you make them laugh, wouldn't you? And they're going to remember you and want you to come back. So we've got to set ourselves up for success. But success is, to me, we've really got to understand that we cannot alter what's in front of us. We can't change how the world is. We have to accept how the world is and alter who we are. That's the only thing you can do.
Love it.
I think the other bit too, adding to that, Darren, is that the Tom Hanks comment that we referred to last week, which is "It too shall pass."
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go into it with this ability of, here's the world, things are changing. I'm working twice as hard for the same amount of money as I was 6 months ago. But you know what? That's part of this wonderful journey. If I can survive this, I'm going to have better systems and processes in the future. Or I'm going to have more skills. I'm making more phone calls, so I'm going to have better negotiation skills. I'm going to be smarter at it. And it too shall pass. So when the market comes back, and this is the thing, it's all cyclical. All of this stuff. We've been through this before. You only have to listen to the US Congress yesterday, where the guy, there was a senator questioning the guy from the Reserve Bank, and he was saying, listen, I've gone back and looked at every, he called it recessionary, and there was a recession market and recessionary, which is a bit different in the description. I don't know maybe I've got the words wrong, but he was saying, look, I've gone back since the 1950s, and every time we've been through this process, in order to drop inflation by 2%, we've got to increase unemployment by 2%. Is that correct? And the Reserve Bank guy wouldn't give him an answer, but anyway, the senator proved to be correct. But at the end of that, I remember the GFC landing. I remember ringing my dad saying, Dad, drop all your shares, it's coming. I'd just been speaking to one of the financial analysts at the Herald Sun. I said, it's coming. Switch everything out for cash. Just ditch everything. This is going to be a nightmare. And at the same time, a guy that I went to school with by the name of Ruslan Kogan rang me and said, I'm starting a new business where I'm going to sell cheap TVs over the internet. And I'm sort of sitting there going, how is anyone ever going to buy a couple of $1,000 television without ever seeing it? It didn't make sense. Ruslan Kogan now is...
How do you do it?
He's flying. Like, he owns a massive... he took on Harvey Norman and basically nearly brought them to their knees. And so I think the advice is, when you go into this, be with what is in the world, but also understand that this too shall pass.
Now, that's a lovely line. This too shall pass. That's great. I forgot where it originates, but it might even be from the Bible. I can't remember. But it's absolutely right. Whatever crap we're going through, it'll be different. Plus, let's face it, I would rather be where I am with my life in this situation than I would be in Turkey at the moment with 37,000 or whatever number thousand people still lying dead under rubble, not being able... I mean, wouldn't you prefer to be where you are? It isn't as bad as some people have got it.
So there's a couple of origins to the term "this too shall pass." It's a translation of a Persian adage, "this too shall pass." But in the Bible, there was a similar in Corinthians 4.17-18, talks about troubles being temporary.
That'll do. Yeah, we'll have that.
Perfect.
Bible class.
Jeez, see
Last
what you
time you
get
went
in
to
this
Bible class,
podcast,
Darren.
man. You can go anywhere. Like, we could end up anywhere.
Anywhere. All right, number 3. Emotive voice, underlying message. Let's go, Darren.
Yeah.
Let's hit
So
this
one of the things that I really started to focus on with teams is understanding that sometimes in these situations that there is an immediate emotive response. So when something happens, the first response we have is generally emotional. Oh shit, it didn't work. Oh, he's a bastard. Or I can't get through to them. I've rung them so many times. Oh, that's a real emotive response. And what I'm getting people to start to realize a little bit more is just accept that there is an emotive response and you'll have that emotive voice, but also consider the voice behind that emotion, because we've all got that subconscious voice that goes, yep, it is just one call and it's the one person that you've been trying to get hold of, but just accept that it's part of the journey to get hold of them and you just got to keep going, right? And it's just that play between if we give too much power to that emotional voice, what ends up happening is we get on this emotional roller coaster, which keeps on taking us on a downhill slide. And what I'm trying to get people to do more now is just go, actually realize the second voice and just follow it. And I mean, I often do this, when I go out on a run. So I'm going out for a run and I get to a point and I know there's a point coming up in the road. And I say to myself, do you know what, Darren? You need to turn left here because that's the shorter distance. That'll take you home. And do you know what I say to myself? I said, yep, you're right. Yep. I'm just going to turn left when I get to that point and I'm going to turn off and I'm going to head home a bit earlier. And once what in behind, my head's going, you just need to keep going, mate. You just need to keep pushing this through. So when you get to the turn, instead of you going left, you just keep going straight ahead, right? Now, what does your head say? Oh, hold on. You thought you were going to turn. And then you think to yourself, do you know what? Just keep going. And we've got to keep realizing that emotive response that we have got, if we keep listening to that is what takes us down a path looking for easy street, and it doesn't give us our success.
That is what I was saying about being able to recognize that it's the mind talking to you and it's dwelling on the negative. It will always, that's its job. You got to basically
go for the shortcut. Go for the shortcut. Don't just do 7 calls, not 10. Just do my 7.
I've got a suggestion for you, Darren. Take up swimming because you can't turn left.
Yeah, good point.
You just have to keep going.
Here's the interesting bit with what you just said, Darren, is that the emotive voice. And then if we go back to what we spoke about earlier about more writing on the meetings that you're having, on the appraisals that you're attending. You're putting more pressure on yourself to get stuff done, and that brings that emotive response out. Now, just think back to the last time, anyone who's listening or watching this, think back to the last time you're on the phone to someone who was giving you emotive responses. Now, I had a guy whose job in real estate is all about cold calling. He's just a cold caller for a real estate agency business. They won't let him be a salesperson. They won't let him do anything else. Just get on the phone and ring, and he just gets on there. And it was the second time this guy had rung me in about 4 weeks, and I really wish I'd recorded it. And so rather than falling for his sales script, I just started talking to him like a person. And he didn't like it, because I was mucking up his system in a way. And he started to get really emotive. And I just said to him, I said, what's hurting you, man? What's hurting you? Let's just, wind it back for a second. And he started letting off about his boss and not being able to be a salesperson and didn't know he'd changed business. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't need the weight of your emotions, your struggles on me at the moment. I've got my own troubles.
You should send him an invoice for therapy.
No, but I was nice and I was nice and gentle and I was polite, but it was just trying to work out what that is. So if you are riding too much on what's happening, if you're putting too much weight on the meetings that you're having, then have more meetings.
Yeah.
Because if you have more meetings, then the weight's spread across more and it becomes lighter. That's how you load up a donkey, right?
I think let's come back to the point we made earlier that this is going to happen again in 5 or 10 years' time. So when it happens next time, if you had that $1 million in the bank behind you, then you wouldn't be putting your weight, so much pressure on yourself with this meeting. Let's get the next recession sorted now.
Yep.
That's the smart thing to do. Get ahead of the game now. And do you know what? I think when I first started being self-employed, I used to do this calculation at the end of every week. How much money have I, if I sold everything I own, how long could I live for? Because I was so panicking about I haven't got enough money. And it got to the point where I wasn't calculating in days or weeks anymore. It was years. Oh, I can live for that long. And then you suddenly realize, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Because I was a panicker about not having enough money. And if you are a panicker about it, it's because you haven't got enough. So sort that out. I don't mean earn it now. I mean, get it next check you get in, put 10% over in that account there.
And I think that takes us to point number 4 really well, which is plan. You've got to have a plan. If you're not going to turn up tomorrow and have a meeting and appraisal and get $1 million worth of work and be able to do it and keep all that $1 million, right?
Yeah.
There's no job on the planet that's going to get that. So you have to have a plan. If you want to bring yourself that, reduce the load on yourself, which then removes the emotive response, which everyone regrets emotive responses. I think there was a saying that's, I never regret keeping my temper. No, but I always regret losing it. And I think that's
Artie Sarvier this last weekend when he did this thing to the other rugby player. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Will Smith.
He was just like that.
And Will Smith at the Oscars, or
Will Smith at the Oscars.
Yeah. Boy, do they regret that.
Yeah,
that's right. So have a plan, because the plan will bring you peace in your life. It'll bring you more comfort. And it'll allow you to perform at your best.
Yeah. Hold on,
he says.
So just remember what I do every day, right? I'm sitting in offices. I'm in front of these audiences. Do you know what I hear all the time? Oh, Darren, I got a plan. Oh, yeah, I've got a plan. And I go, where is it? And they go, oh, it's in here.
It's always in here. Yeah. And they haven't got a plan.
And then I say to them, okay, how quickly can you change the plan? And they go, just like that. Right, so I can change it straight away, right? So what I'm saying is you actually haven't got a plan. You've got a roadmap that you can change at any time because of any circumstances, and 99.99% of the time it wasn't because it was your fault.
Of course, it's never your fault.
I don't think that's a plan. I think that's more of a feeling of what you'd like to do for the day.
Yeah, nice.
Do you think if you went to an Olympic athlete and said, have you got a plan for getting to the next Olympics, they go, yeah, it's in here? No. None of them. It's all written. They'd say, yes, here's my plan. Look, I read it every bloody day.
That's it. And you see, this is the piece where you've got to write the bloody plan down.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's a difference in quality of
that will
plans,
make you stick to it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, there's been plenty of examples in the world of people who had the best. I mean, even written down plans can be crap. So Darren, you're the plan man of action. How do we write and we did do an episode on this that you can check in season 2 early on. I think number 3, episode 3. Just give us a brief overview of how do you determine a good plan versus a dodgy one, even if they are written down.
Yep. So the biggest thing for me, first of all, was have a clear vision of what you're wanting to try and achieve, right? So a big vision picture, because if you're worried about the small incrementals and those don't go well, then it will really upset you. But if you've got that big vision target at the end, that's the thing you've got to keep focused on. The next one for me is having 4 or 5 key objectives in your business over a period of time. What are the things that I want to achieve? 4 or 5 of them nailed down, and then take each one of them and be really specific about what achievement would be in that particular area, and then the steps that you need to do. What's the word I put in there? The steps you need to do to make sure that that is achieved, right? And what that means is that it now enables you to have a task list of practical to-dos each day. So then what I do now is I don't worry about necessarily too much about my objectives. All I'm worried about is the core activities that I do each day. And once I do that on a daily basis, oh my goodness, we start to achieve the objectives, which then ultimately achieves our vision of where we want to be. So for me, it becomes about setting those parameters, writing those down, and then make sure it becomes a daily task list.
And I suppose it's also be flexible with it, because if you're doing something and it's not working, then change what you're doing.
So then what I do, so then I do is go back to the plan, right, and start saying, well, I'll fix the plan. But a lot of the times this is what happens, John, is that I get a lot of people that say to me, oh, that's not working, it's not working. And I'll just go, well, actually, you said you were supposed to do 10 calls. You only did 7. You missed the 3 important ones. And actually, so you're not actually following your plan. And now there's an emotive response because I'm doing my plan and I'm not getting the result. But actually, you're not really doing the activity and you're trying to trick yourself. And that's the bit where I just get back to that core activities every day. And if you do that, you're away.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So, John,
you've eliminated the emotive response, which is what you were talking about and getting rid of. If you can realise that you've got to do the actions, and by doing that, you eliminate the emotive response. You're dead right.
And that actually gets us to, even though we're up to point 4, that actually is point 6. And I think we should just jump straight into that. Do the action, do the activity. And John, I don't know how long you've known Darren for. You said a couple of weeks. It's more like a couple of decades. But you did use the word. You did use the word flexibility in regards to plans, and he nearly fell out of his chair. He nearly had a little conniption fit there. It's more assess and review whether your plan's working for you with measurable KPIs. Like measure it, measure. Let's not be flexible. Just do it first, then see what happens.
I think he is flexible, because if he was making calls and not getting any gigs, then he would change what he's doing. So he's got to the stage where he's flexible. But you have to understand that at the moment, Darren's in Goggins mode. So he's going to make 10 calls. In fact, he's going to make 12, even though he's going to tell you he's going to do 10. And whether you like it or whether you don't, whether you're listening or whether you pay any attention, he's still going to make 12 calls anyway.
He's been doing He's been doing one finger push-ups while he's on those calls.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you. And the point is, you can do that too much. You can get yourself in hot water by doing that too much. But I'm sure that Darren's got that under control anyway. So
what, being too tigerish?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't like to have Goggins as a mate. I wouldn't buy from Goggins, would you? Because he's so intense. Don't get me wrong; he gets great results. He does, but if you get too intense, you frighten other people, I think.
And I think that's the point, right, of getting the balance right for you, right? So this is the bit where I go back to that vision of going, what do you look like? What does your vision look like? If you haven't got good clarity about what you are and where you are in the world, like if you want to be the number 1 real estate agent in a particular market, you want to work like a dog, you want to make all the calls in the world, you want to grow the biggest team, and you want to smash it out of the ballpark, then that's a decision to make, right? But that comes at a whole lot of consequences.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's the piece that you've got to start weighing up of that ultimate vision of what I'm trying to achieve here. It might be an easier balance. It might be, hey, I want to be the best in my state, or I want to be the best in a city or a region, but I actually also want to be really successful in my family, or really successful at sport, or really successful at any other number of things that you want to put into your life. But actually having the decision and making clarity about those things is what creates your story and creates your objectives of what you need to be achieving. So don't think I'm just going to drive you down a path of making 1,000 calls a day because that's the greatest thing. But you've got to actually work out what creates your success at a level that you are wanting and deserve, probably.
I think we've got to be really careful about choosing that vision of the future. You're dead right. You could achieve all those things, but you might lose your marriage. You might lose your relationship with your mother or your father. And, so you're dead right. There's always consequences to choosing the path. So you've got to make sure that the path is the one you actually, how much do you need to earn every year? What is the level? Yeah, you could probably earn 10 million, but is that going to give you the lifestyle you want? Because learning 10 million, you're not going to have any time off.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's a point. I mean, I've been approached recently to enter into a weekend type engagement as an auctioneer. I've had a lot of interest from people to do that, and it's just the price that it pays doesn't equate to me missing my kids play sport at this age.
Absolutely.
Maybe in the future that'll change, but yeah, I think you have to weigh up. I think the first thing that you have to find within yourself is that word of balance. You know, but the pain for what you want has to be greater than your need or desire to take the action. And this is where a lot of people get stuck, is that they want everything, but they're not prepared to take the action. Or, you know, some people I know who are now getting really addicted to working from home, and I've been working from home since 2013. It's really easy to be busy but not do any work.
Yep.
And they're starting to get really comfortable with the idea that, you know, they can go for a swim and a ride and whatever, but they still, you know, now all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't have the money, and they're you know, the market's the fault, to blame, or, you know, the world's turned, or there's not as many jobs out there anymore. It's like, no, you slipped. You let it drop, right? Because you didn't, as we said, we didn't do the actions. Now, here's the next thing, number 5, which we've done these a little bit out of order, so we'll make this number 6, is, you know, if you got yourself in that position, the only thing that gets you in the position that you are today, John, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, are your own actions or your response to the actions of others. It's the only 2 things that control you in the world. That's your reality.
Well, that's assuming that we don't have a thing called luck.
Well, your position. Well, it's funny how the people who take more action get luckier. I've always believed in that.
Yes. Well, I love that quote. The harder I work, the luckier I get. Who was that?
Right.
Some golfer. But you're dead right. No,
let's just give that quote to Jesus again. We seem to be giving all the quotes to Jesus today. So another one for
I think
the J-Hoos, the big JC.
It's one of the top golfers. Anyway, the point is, I'm 100% agree with you. It's your actions on getting the results, or your reaction to somebody else's actions, and you are responsible for your outcome. There's no doubt about it. Well, that's everybody's going to say, yeah. When they work and earn a lot of money, they're going to say, yeah, I'm responsible for that. But when they work and they don't earn any money, they won't take responsibility for that. And that's the trouble in life. When everything's wonderful, we are responsible human beings. When everything isn't, when everything goes to a ball of chalk, we are not responsible. We don't say, yeah, that was my fault. That's personal responsibility.
That is really amazing. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but we had a scenario in the news this week where a mum, now hold on to your hats for this, a young mum with a 9-month-old baby and her sister, so the auntie of the baby, thought it would be a good idea if they let the 9-month-old suck on a vape.
Oh, jeez.
And videoed it and put it on TikTok. And then laughed when the kid was coughing and whatever. And the mum's response when the outrage came, as predicted by a normal person, is that it was all everyone else's fault for judging her, and you're all scumbags and dirtbags, and I love my kid, leave me alone. And not only that, when Child Services came and visited and she didn't get charged or didn't lose the kid, she followed up with another video to say, see, I was right. It was all your fault, not my fault. Stay the F out of my life and my business. So there's a reason why she's on benefits. I'm sure she doesn't watch this show, Darren, so I think we're safe. But there's, it's that lack of accountability, that lack of the ability to take responsibility for your own outcomes and results. You are only where you are in life unless you've got a serious health issue that's some rare condition or terminal condition where, some people can be, you say luck, I say, some people can be really unlucky with the hand they get dealt in life. But even then, there's usually decisions and steps that you can take to adjust where you are at, or at least the perspective that you have on where you're at.
It's focusing, as we said before, it's focusing on what is rather than what could have been or what was. It's about, if you are born with a disability, then you actually don't know what not having a disability is like. So you accept what is.
Yep.
And, if your cat, right, if you don't feed your cat, it doesn't stand with its hands on its hips and go, why hasn't he fed? No, it just, I haven't got any food. I need to go and get some. I'll go out there and get some.
Not
It
my cat.
just accepts what is and works to what is,
We've
rather
got a
than
cat.
blame.
We've got a cat that's been renamed Karen because if there's no food in the bowl, she does come and say "Rah," and ask for the food. So here's number 6. Don't dwell. So John, you're the brain expert here. You're the motivational guy. How do you stop people being caught in the funk of dwelling on things?
Okay, that's
How
that
do they snap out of it?
disassociation. That's learning to be able to observe your thoughts. And that is what mindfulness is. And to actually create that takes practice. To be able to, and if we come back to Goggins again, Goggins says he meditates for 2 hours a day. Now, he does it when he's doing stretching exercises. So basically, he's doing a type of yoga, which yoga was created to get people mentally strong to be able to be better meditators. So the idea of practicing the concept of mindfulness, and it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day to practice that. And eventually what happens is you come to the conclusion that these thoughts that you have are not you. These thoughts that are going on up here, you're able to disassociate from them, and therefore they're meaningless. They're valueless. They don't affect you. So when your voice says something like, "Oh, it's 4:15 and nobody's going to want to take my call," you can tell the voice to bugger off because it's not important. It's irrelevant. Or in Darren's case, when the voice says, "Turn left here."
Okay, so you say it starts in mindfulness.
Yes.
Is that also a level of self-awareness, like being aware that those? And let's before I'll let you have it. So when we differentiate between those, and you decide which one they need to go to, which is probably going to be mindfulness. Let's be honest. Where do they start? Where do they start to learn this? Like, if there's people listening, how do we get them over it?
Mindfulness is the ability. Your mind has 2 functions, right? One of them is thinking. And that's most of us, that's all we look, without a knowledge, we just think, oh, well, that's what our mind does. It analyzes things and it plans things and it remembers stuff and that's all it does. No. The first function of the mind is what's called awareness. That's the reception of information, receiving the information. And then it takes that information and uses it to take action with. So it receives the information from your senses, the 5 senses. Once it's got the information, it then starts using that to think its way through what to do with it. Okay, we pay all the attention to the thinking part, whereas probably the most important part is the awareness. What is the information? Focus on the information. And that's what mindfulness is. It's this idea of being really focused on what I see, what I hear, what I feel, what I taste, what I touch. Not interpreting that, not judging that, not comparing that, just observing it. And when you build that awareness up, that's not self-awareness, that's awareness of what is in your life. Awareness, not judging it, not interpreting it, just what is happening. Then you start to, you don't lose the ability to think. All you do is you realize that the thinking is just this mind babble that's going on over here. I can use it if I want to, but I don't have to use it if I don't want to. But you won't actually develop that ability without learning more about awareness.
Okay, so I get that now.
How does that sound? Okay.
But the world at the moment is being swamped with 100 different ways to get yourself improved.
Yes.
Got this era. We're in an era of misinformation almost. Information
Yes.
overload, misinformation, whatever it is. So, in my circle, my social media feeds at the moment, it's all about positive affirmations. And I'm hearing from all these unbelievably successful, famous, rich people, even like young YouTubers who are bringing in, 100. I think they launched a sports drink in Australia the other week, and they made $46 million in a month.
Prime.
That's it. You know it. The Logan boys. Now Jake Paul, the Paul brothers. So Jake Paul, the youngest of the two, he's been the pest of the internet for almost 10 years. And he was on his brother's podcast yesterday. And he was the calmest, most sensible, non-reactionary version of himself ever. And he puts it down to boxing and lessons from a life coach who's getting him to talk about positive affirmations and understanding his thoughts. Right? I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and do that. And he's achieving it.
There's a difference between those two. Positive affirmations is the creation of thoughts.
Yep.
Understanding your thoughts is different.
Yeah.
Those are two things. Relatively unimportant. The ability to disassociate from your thoughts and not take as much notice of them. I've lost you.
That's all right. We'll just keep going, John.
Okay.
We'll keep going. We'll just.
Good. I don't know what's happened to him. But I think in terms of learning this stuff, I think the most important thing is to make the decision to understand it. Because there's enough information. If you Google the word mindfulness and read 4 websites, it will become pretty bloody obvious pretty bloody quickly who's trying to rip you off and take money from you and who's genuinely excited about mindfulness. And just follow the ones that are genuine. As if somebody's ripping you off and trying to assign you up to a course on mindfulness, forget it. You can get all you need on the internet from somebody who's not trying to rip you off.
And I think the biggest thing here is that mindfulness is a skill, right? It's ability to have this ability to learn a whole lot about it. And I think, I'd like to do another episode on this whole area of mindfulness, because I think it's a really handy skill to have when we're talking about a topic like we have today about what are the solutions to get out of this environment, and that mindfulness is a big part of that. So I think it's important that we address that again, and I think, Jonathan, we'll put that on our list, mate.
Absolutely. Another few episodes. You got me back now. I disappeared into the ether. Yep. I don't know why this system's playing up at the moment. So that's it. Let's just recap. We've been in the challenging market. We feel as though we've got a whole lot of people, Darren, in our world who have turned up to work maybe sitting at about 70%, and they think they're at capacity. And we're trying to work them out of this funk. And what we're saying is that you've got to go for some small wins. You've got to stand away or stand in or accept the world that you're in at the moment. Be in the state of the world as it is. Be really mindful of that emotive voice and the underlying message that comes from that emotive voice, and try and control that or temper it a little bit and focus more on what comes second. So catch yourself. Kids are great at this. They let out emotive responses. No, you can't have ice cream tonight. Bang, you cop it. Right, that's right. So it really is about building that filter, and I think the people who are really achieving at the moment have this calmness about them. And we've been speaking about David Goggins today a fair bit, and I've spent a lot of time with Navy SEALs in the past, particularly in the early 2014 era, and they are the calmest people you ever meet in the world. Like, they have it together. Like, they could kill you with their pinky fingers, but they're just so hard to rile up. You cannot get them to give you an emotional response, either laughing, crying, like anger. You don't get it. So control that emotive voice and you'll control your kingdom. Have a plan, not a dodgy one in your head, a written down one that you can assess and reevaluate and measure and adjust if required. But make sure that I think you need to make sure that it's not flexible on the go. It's flexible only after certain assessment points. So, don't, if you have 2 bad phone calls out of the 10, your first 2, don't change the plan, see it through, and then reassess over the whole 10, not just the first 2. Don't dwell on where you're at or what's happening. If you weren't as productive yesterday as you thought you needed to be, don't worry about it. Yesterday's done and dusted. You can't change it. Just change your today. Change what you're doing right now. And the last one, take action. Do the activity. Yep. And I think most of us would suggest that you're going to feel a lot better about you. Hey, if you have a day in your life where you go the whole day and you don't make any money, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself if you didn't make any money but you still took the action versus not making the money and not doing anything.
Love it.
You might as well make yourself feel a little bit better even though you're not making any cash.
Mate, that's a really good list. And I just hope that today, people listening to this are going to go, right, let me get a pen and paper now. Let me start writing some things down about actually what's my process? What is my plan? What are the things that I'm actually going to become accountable to do? Because once you've got that in place, I think that really you can take advantage of a market like this. I think there is a chance to get out of the funk now and get this year really going. And I certainly think that, our ability to control that is going to help us with where we need to be this year. So great points that I think you've just got to focus on putting into place.
And John, thank you for joining us. You mentioned the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Freckle. Now I want to spend the whole afternoon reading it so I don't have to make my calls. Not going to happen. Leaving that tonight. Not allowed. Do all that stuff when the people aren't on the other end of the phone. And what time are they on the phone from, Darren? What are the you can call? You've made more cold calls than anyone I know. What are the hours? What are the acceptable hours so we can get this out of our minds of when you can call and not call? What's operating hours for cold calls?
9 till 7.
7 at night.
Yep.
All right. There you go.
So and to be honest, anytime. Realistically, if you know the person's available at that time, ring them, right? But just this whole idea of trying to pick, people say this to me all the time, when should I call? When should I call? Yeah, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you don't know what's happening on the other end of the phone. You don't know what the person's doing. Oh, don't start me on this. You have a rant for another 20 minutes. But what I'm saying is you got to just get on the full call. Don't worry about what's best time. If you make enough calls, you'll get enough people. You just got to keep doing that. So don't start me. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
And I think the other point is too, if they don't want to answer it, they don't answer it.
Totally.
It's not that big an inconvenience.
Get on with it.
And they'll listen to the voice. They'll listen to the voice message when they're ready to call you back.
I've really enjoyed this.
Don't try hiding who you are when you call. Don't have one of those things that doesn't say it's your number, because I never answer calls unless I know who's I'm talking to. If they don't want to talk.
Let's get out of here. This has been a fantastic topic. You start me down this path, boys, and you're going to have to spend another hour with me because have I got some stories for you on this one.
Well, there's the next topic, folks. John Shackleton, where can people find more about you and learn your wonderful ways?
www.johnshack.com.
Johnshack.com, not johnshackleton.com.
No, johnshack.com.
Okay, he's shortened it up for the folks who don't want to waste any letters. All right, guys, this was episode... I don't even know what episode this was, but it was a great episode. John Shackleton, thanks for joining us. Darren Pratley, of course, all the way over from New Zealand, coming to Melbourne this month. If you're listening and you're in Melbourne, oh no, Batman and Robin might be getting together and taking on the town.
Look out.
Look out. Let us know in the comments what we should do with Darren while he's over here, where we should go, what sites he needs to see in Melbourne. And I look forward to the next episode. Thank you, John. All the best to you for the rest of the day and whatever the week brings. And Smiley.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Jonathan.